What's the magic inside a hydraulic jack that makes it possible for me to lift a car with just one finger? Today, we're going to open this thing up to see how it works inside. To start with, how does this tool work? Usually, this jack doesn't come with the car. It's a hydraulic jack. It's full of oil inside, and this jack lifts the car much more easily than the one provided with the car. So, to lift the car and change the tire, the first thing you need to do is adjust this screw up here so you can overcome the gap between the end of the jack and the starting point of support here on the car. I keep raising it back there until it touches the car. Then, I close this little valve. There's already a wrench at the tip of the tool. I close it and then I fit it here. My lever already has an extension to make it easier. And now you just lift the car. I did it with my finger. I'll say it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it can be done. But I think it's much faster and much more practical than that screw jack. It's reached its limit. That's all it can lift. We bought this thing today and I'll confess to you that I was a bit disappointed because it should have a little more range, enough to lift the wheel off the ground. Changing this tire while it's on the ground is annoying. You'll still need to lift the car. Or I'll have to put something underneath here and then lower the car onto that thing to lift it a bit more. To start, if you're buying one, choose a bigger one. I wouldn't take this one with me. To lower the car, just turn the little valve the other way. Look, that's it. Here on the front, it says that this little guy can lift 4 tons. That's way more than enough to change a tire. You don't need to lift the whole car to change a tire. Just raise one side so the car stands like a tripod. Second, 4 tons could lift about 2 pickup trucks completely off the ground. It's no wonder that several hydraulic presses are made with a little device like this one here. Like that press we used to test Octobot's leg. I wonder if we could crush something, like a hydraulic press using this one? Get ready to see the most high-tech hydraulic press of your life. The jack fitting. Here, let's set it up properly, and let's add some weight. Huh, it's not working while lying down. There must be some kind of air in it. Ah, look, it's working again. Borave if it works here now. It doesn't work while lying down. I set up this wonderful complex setup here, with blocks and everything, and the thing doesn't work lying down. This way it works, so let's flip it. Now it worked, now it worked. Just need to adjust the can here. Geometry was missing. That's why the hydraulic press has those 2 bars on the side, right? It's to align the thing when it's coming down. And the can even started leaking. It's the soda that's getting in the way, right? Now that's it. Look at that. Look. As if a 4-ton car had run over it. Wasn't that the best hydraulic press you've ever seen? This shows how strong it is. Lucas suggested if we could use this structure here as a support to make the press. Take a look at what would happen if we used it. Making the hydraulic press is tough because you have to align what you're pressing, right? It gets misaligned and never presses properly. So I need to take it apart, right? No. After making this mess with the press, I thought, this isn't worthy of Manuel do Mundo. This job is sloppy. Let's do it right. Honestly, this homemade hydraulic press concept has always been part of Manuel do Mundo. There are 3 pieces of wood with 4 threaded rods. Really sturdy wood. This rod acts as an endless screw, holding the set together and helping align the press. A real hydraulic press is designed for steel and sturdier materials, so this isn't ideal. But the alignment should prevent what happened before, like the can slipping out, right? It's nothing, but I think this one turned out better than the other, right? Look at that refinement. I can tighten the nuts up here so that the top part of the press lines up exactly with the soda can. By the way, you could actually make a homemade press that isn't hydraulic, just using these screws. We wouldn't need the jack, but it would be annoying since I'd have to keep tightening these nuts for the press to compress the object. Here, that's not the case. I'll use the hydraulic jack, which is already meeting resistance since it's so tight. Whoa, it's not going. Ah, because the thread locks the movement. The wood gets misaligned and it locks on the thread. That's not possible. Maybe I have to take a more drastic action here. Let's free this wood. Look, the wood gets stuck. If you press too hard while it's crooked, it won't work. I think this will solve it. Now I can already feel the can giving in. I'm not kidding. Look, the bottom of it is already... Good thing it was zero soda. Energy, 41 calories per 100 milliliters. Guess it wasn't after all. Let's finish up here, right? Look how nice it is when we do it right. How many times do you think we can fold a sheet of paper here, huh? The legend is that you can't fold a sheet of paper more than 7 times. But some people have folded it much more with powerful machines. Borave, what we can do with this little machine. I folded it once, so now we have 2 sheets. If I fold it again, we already have a stack of 4 sheets, right? One on top of the other. You always have to fold it in the middle. Here, 8 sheets. I folded it 3 times. 2 to the power of 3 is 8. 2 to the power of 4 is 16. 2 to the power of 5 is 32. 2 to the power of 6 is 64. I folded it 6 times. I need the press's help to push this now. Wow. Wow. Look at what happened to the paper. Let's fold it one more time. This will be the 7th time. Let's put it in the press again. From now on, the challenge begins. The 8th fold. You can see it's already getting pretty thick. It dented the wood. Wow, the paper made a hole in the wood. Look at it against the light. And this wood here is really tough. I don't know if we'll be able to fold it a 9th time. Let's try it here, using the pliers. From here, it just gets messy. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it now. But we really felt that little press's power, didn't we? The question, once again, is where's the magic in this thing? Let's find out by analyzing its insides. The first step here is to try to remove the oil that's inside. I don't know if I've already mentioned it in this video, but this thing is full of oil inside. I'll drill a hole here with the hand drill since it's easier to clamp it in the vise. It's a bit difficult. I'm going to put some cutting fluid, which is this oil that helps us drill metal. It's just a hole. It wasn't enough. Let's make another one so the air can get in and the oil can come out. Now it will work. There was little oil. Let's open this up. I have 3 concerns here. The first is not to hurt myself, because this machine, the grinder, is extremely dangerous. If a disc hits my hand, breaks, or slips, pieces will fly everywhere. So I need a face shield and gloves. I'm unsure, since if it hits my hand, it might get caught too. And I should be wearing long sleeves to protect my arm from these sparks that fly out. But that's not so dangerous, so I prefer it this way, since the sleeve can also get caught. The second concern is actually being able to cut, because there are several parts of solid steel that are deep in here. Sometimes, the disc isn't big enough to reach the point I want to get to. I also don't want to use a bigger grinder, since it's even more dangerous than this one. And the third point, which might be the hardest of all, is that it has to be a delicate cut. It has to be a smart cut. So after all this, we can understand how it works. My goal isn't just to keep cutting metal like a fool. It's to be able to understand and then explain it to you. I think I'm getting there. Let's go to the board. This is absurdly simple, but genius. It's basically 2 pieces. Look, this main part, which actually lifts the car, is a big piston. It's a steel cylinder that moves inside a super strong hollow tube. It's kind of like a syringe, like the ones used for injections. Here, on the other side, where we apply the force, There's exactly the same thing, just smaller. It's another piston, a tiny piston, which also works like another injection syringe. The key is making a big motion with the small syringe. I'm pushing the small syringe completely, but the big syringe hardly moves. This mechanism here is going to make you lose your range of motion. You move a lot on one side, but little happens on the other. Just like a bike's low gear. You gain strength. And how much strength you gain will depend on the size of the front of the piston. It will depend on the area of this part here. If it were a syringe, it would be the front of this little black rubber piece. So, to know how much strength we gain here, we need to find the area of both pistons' fronts, the larger and smaller, and compare them. I'm going to take a look at the big math book to see how I calculate the area of a circle. And then, based on what I measured with the caliper, I can figure out that, rounding it off, the area of the front of this cylinder is 4 square centimeters, and the area of the front of this cylinder is 1 square centimeter. So, every time you press this smaller syringe, you have 4 times more force. Time to lift the car. But that's not all. There's also the difference made by this lever here. You can see there's a small part on one side of the piston and a large part on the other. The difference between the two also gives the lever extra force. The larger part here is 24 centimeters. The part on the other side is 3. So 24 is 8 times bigger than 3. So my force at the moment I press here is multiplied by 8, just because of the lever. And there's still the gain from the piston here, which is times 4. So 4 times 8, I'm 32 times stronger. If you're following the explanation, you might be wondering, this is the car jack. So I go there. I use the small syringe, which is a cylinder with a lever, to lift the car. But the oil on this side runs out fast. I have to pump this side several times for it to rise a lot, but the car still won't lift. That's where the secret comes in, a part we haven't talked about yet. If you look around this cylinder here, we have an empty space, and that space gets filled with oil. All of this here is an oil reservoir. It's a reservoir, so you can pump here several times. This oil moves over here. A cross-section drawing looks like this. This here is the small cylinder. When you pump, the oil comes and starts pushing this cylinder up. So it takes the oil from this reservoir and pushes it over here. And then you might ask, hey, but what makes sure that when I press this cylinder here, the oil doesn't go back to the reservoir? Why does the oil follow this exact path? It leaves the reservoir and goes to the piston. It leaves the reservoir and goes to the piston every time I press it. Because here in the middle of the way, we have 2 valves. We have 2 magic little taps that only let the oil go in one direction. I tried to make a giant valve here, okay? Basically, you'll have a hole on each side so the oil can pass through. This can be oil, it can be air, it can be water, any fluid, okay? Inside, we'll have a little ball. This ball completely blocks the hole here. It blocks everything in this position, and there's a spring under the ball. So, if you have a flow coming from here to here, air or water passing through here, or the oil from the jack, it will push the ball, be able to go around it and flow. So, it can go through the valve when it's coming from here to here. In this direction, everything is fine. If it tries to go the other way, look, it can't, because it pushes the little ball against its own closure. So it closes this passage even more. It will never be able to go from here to there, but it can go from there to here. So that's what we're going to have here. As you keep pumping, the oil goes into this main piston. It lifts the car, but it doesn't go back down. The valve doesn't let it go back down at all. This ensures that the car is lifted safely. If it went back down, the car would lower each time you let go of this. There's also another mechanism. After you've pumped all the oil, it came completely out of the reservoir, lifted the car, all good. Now I want to lower the car. If this valve blocks oil from returning, how will the oil go back? Just to remind you, it leaves the reservoir, goes through the piston, and is injected into the larger piston. What I can do is cut the path here. Look, make a passage and install a valve. If I open this valve, I can make the oil go back to the reservoir. That's why there's a valve in the front that I can open and close with this piece. To lift the car, I close the valve so that path no longer exists. It has to go through the valves, then the oil fills up and lifts this piston. To do the opposite, I open the small valve so the oil bypasses the valves and returns to the reservoir, lowering the car. And one last thing that came to my mind while I was taking all this apart, it's called a hydraulic jack, hydraulic steering. Why do they use oil inside instead of water if it's called hydro? Doing some research, I found 3 reasons. The first is that oil is already a lubricant, so it lubricates the whole system. Everything keeps working well with oil. It slides smoothly inside all the parts and everything else. Second, nearly everything here is steel, so water would cause rust. Oil has the opposite effect. It protects against rust. Or is it the rust? Rust. Is it the rust or the rust? It sounds like the singer Farragum to me. Instead of saying the Farragum, it's the rust. Lastly, water evaporates at 100 degrees Celsius and freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, so temperature protection is important. In a country like Russia, if I use something with water inside, it will freeze and become unusable. Oil, its boiling point and melting point are very different. They're much farther apart than those of water. You can use it at temperatures above or below waters, and it will still function. Lastly, it's worth noting this mechanism we just discussed, where you take a cylinder, a small piston, and control a big one to gain force. It's the basis for a lot of things we know. From the car's power steering to those excavators, giant machines that are covered in hoses around them to be able to transport the oil, which is working in several mechanisms there. If you learned anything new in this video, I think it's worth subscribing to the channel. Or give it a thumbs up down below if you're already subscribed, that's great. I'll recommend our playlist from the series What's Inside. We opened up everything you can imagine, from electric showers to X-ray machines.